Alright, now we are going to discuss the reasons for the law of demand, or the why does demand curve slope downward to the right. So we have explained before that it is because of the inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded that we are having a downward sloping towards the right for the demand curve. Here they are giving an alternative explanation why the quantity demanded or the demand curve slopes downward towards the right. So it is because of the law of demand that we have the downward sloping demand curve that we have explained. But why is that the law of demand rule is valid? How does this validity of the law of demand stands? We shall explain through the help of two concepts, that is income effect and substitution effect. But basically it is because of the inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded that we are facing the downward sloping of a demand curve, or the law of demand. So we shall see the validity of the law of demand through these two concepts, income effect and substitution effect. So the first one is income effect. So when the price of a commodity falls, let us say the price of a commodity falls, a consumer can buy more quantity of the commodity with his given same income. So in other words, as a result of the fall in the price of a commodity, consumer's real income or his purchasing power has increased. Because of the fall in the price of a commodity, his real income or the purchasing power has increases. And this increase in real income, it induces the consumer, to buy more of that commodity. Because of the fall in price, he has the capacity to buy more, and a consumer is induced to buy more of that commodity because the price has fallen, which means that his real income or the purchasing power has increased. So that increase in the purchasing power of a consumer induces him to buy more of that commodity. So this is called the income effect of the change in the price of a commodity. So this is one reason why a consumer buys more of a commodity when price falls. That is why we have the downward sloping of demand curve towards the right. Second, substitution effect. So again here, when the price of a commodity falls, it becomes relatively cheaper than the other commodities, say close substitutes. Let us say the price of a coffee has fallen, and then that coffee will be much relatively cheaper than the tea. So you will feel more dear towards coffee because its price has fallen, and because of that you will buy more of that commodity, which is coffee, which has fallen in price. You will consume or you will buy more of that good. So this induces the consumer to substitute the commodity whose price has fallen for other commodities. So instead of drinking tea, you will buy coffee because the price of the coffee has fallen. So you will substitute coffee for tea. That is why you will buy more of coffee. You will demand more of that commodity, and that coffee will become relatively dearer and you will consume more of that. So this substitution effect is more important than the income effect. Marcel alone, he explained the downward sloping of demand curve by with the aid of substitution effect alone, without taking the income effect. But Higgs and Allen, who put forward an alternative theory towards the demand theory of demand, which is called the indifference curve analysis of consumers' behavior, they explain the downward sloping demand curve with the help of both income and substitution effect. But here they are saying that it is the substitution effect which is more significant in determining the downward sloping of the demand curve. So we have explained the reason for downward sloping of a demand curve for an individual consumer. What about a market demand? So there is an additional reason why the market demand curve for commodity slopes downward. So we are talking about a market demand curve which also slopes downward. So when the price of a commodity is relatively high, only few consumers can afford it. But once the price for a commodity, has reduced or has fallen, more consumers will enter into the market and they will start buying that commodity because the price has fallen. So therefore, when price of a commodity falls, the number of its consumers increases, and this also tends to raise the market demand for that commodity for which the price has fallen. So that is why we also have the downward sloping demand curve towards the right for a market demand curve. Okay, moving on to the next topic, we have the exceptions to the law of demand. Exceptions mean which does not follow or which does not hold true according to the law. So what are some of the exceptions towards the law of demand? So in most of the cases, the law of demand holds true in very many situations. But however, following exceptions to the law of demand have been pointed out. Number one is goods that are having prestigious value, and then given goods. So in these two cases, the law of demand does not hold true. It is saying otherwise. So law of demand, what does it say? When the price of commodity falls, quantity demanded increase, and when the price of commodity increase, quantity demanded for that commodity decreases. So that is the law of demand. But that law of demand will not hold true in these two situations. Let us say goods having prestige value. So in this, goods having prestige value, we often talk about a diamond. So some people, some economists like Thorsten Veblen, who put forward the view of, conspicuous consumption. According to him, some consumers, they measure their utility, through they measure the utility of a commodity entirely by its price, not because of its utility, but they measure the utility because of the price of a commodity. That is, for them, the greater the price of a commodity, the greater its utility for them. So diamonds is, often given an example. So when the price of a diamond is very high, that means that, the utility they derive from diamond is very high. So when the price of a diamond is high, they will demand more diamonds. And when the price of a diamond goes down, that means the utility of diamond decreases. So they will demand less of diamond. So it is going against the law of demand. So when the price of a diamond increases, they demand more, which is against the law of demand, because law of demand says when the price is high, people will demand less. But here, in case of diamond, which is a prestigious goods, they are demanding more when the price is high, and they are demanding less when the price is less. So in this case, law of demand does not hold true. Second case is given goods. So what is all about given goods? So this name is given in the name of Professor Sir Robert Giffen, who observed that, when the price of bread when the price for bread increases, a low-paid British laborers in the early 19th century, they purchase more. When the price of bread increases, they purchase more of bread and not less of it. And that is, contrary again to the demand as described above. So the reason given for this is that these British workers, consume a diet of mainly bread. And when the price of bread went up, they were compelled to buy more of the given quantity of bread because they cannot afford to purchase meat as much as before, because price has gone up. Even though the price for bread has gone up, they purchase more of bread because they cannot buy meat, which is, much costlier than bread. That is why. So thus they substituted even bread for meat in order to maintain their intake for food. So even though the price for bread has increased, they purchase more of bread because they are not able to afford any other food, maybe let's say meat, because price has gone up, so they are compelled to substitute even bread for meat, even though the price for bread has increased. So after the name of Robert Giffin, such goods in whose case there is a direct price demand relationship, they are called Giffin goods. So in this case, there is a direct relation between price and quantity demanded. Even though the price has increased, quantity demanded also increased. So there is a direct relationship between price and quantity demanded. So as in case of Giffin goods, the demand curve will slope upward to the right and not downward. So it does not follow the law of demand. In this case of Giffin goods, the demand curve will slope upward from right to left and not downward. It is going upward. So these are some of the exceptions to the law of demand which is prevalent.